Alright guys, we're getting all the bodies ready for paint, and we have to address a little issue with the 70 GTO MPC kit. And that issue is what I've pointed out before. If you look at where the front bumper meets the body, the fender, the top of the fender wraps right around to the side of the fender in one even line. But if you look at this side, take a look at that. There's a little gap there where the top of the fender seems to have been shot shorter than the side of the fender.
Oh no!
Leaving us with a nice gap, even if we press the front bumper on, we still have a nice little gap there. So what we have to do is we have to fill in that gap. And that's what we're going to start doing right now before we send this car to paint. Now I've got my thinnest sheet of styrene. I think this is the thinnest available right now. This is from where did I get this styrene? I got this from my hobby shop. And this is from Evergreen. And it is the thinnest sheet of styrene they have. I think it's 10,000ths of an inch.
You're wrong.
Don't hold me on that. I'm just guessing at this point. But I find that if we look really closely here, that slides right into this little gap that's missing, and it seems to fill it in perfectly. It seems that the edge of the fender on the side is the exact same distance as the thickness of this piece of styrene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a small strip, we're going to put it in there, and then we're going to sand it and shape it, and it'll be just like if nothing was ever done wrong, which we all know it was. So we don't really need the front bumper on here, so we're going to remove that. And we'll put that to the side. I'm going to take the hood off. Now we're going to let's remove the chassis and the interior. Just take this whole thing apart. And then I'm going to show you what I was talking about. You can see it a little bit better now. If you look here, you can see the top half of the fender is just a little bit shorter than the side of the fender. You see that? And then we look at the other side, and it's perfectly even. It just seems to be a theme with this car, that things are just a little wonky with it from side to side. So we're slowly but surely cleaning it up and fixing everything that we find wrong. So let's go ahead and take care of this. I'm going to cut a small piece of styrene, glue it on there, then we're just going to cut and shape it till it fits nice and flush. We're only going to need a small strip right there. Okay. And we're going to have to sit it right there. We actually may have to double it up. This styrene, now that I'm looking at it, may appear to be a little bit thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my first strip here, and then we're going to work our way down with it. Okay guys, now when we doubled up the super thin styrene, that gave us the perfect amount to fill in that gap. Now we don't want to eliminate the seam, as that seam is there on the real car, so we want it to stay there. But we did fill in that gap, so now we'll have a nice straight bumper, straight fender to bumper contact when we're ready to put this thing together. Now what I have to do is just sand it, fill it to make sure that the seam doesn't show, and we should be good for that fender repair. And you can see here now where it sits flush with the side of the fender, just like the other side now. And I just have to wait for this Tamiya glue to cure and harden so I can start shaving it down and shaping it to exactly where I want it to be. Alright guys, now we are setting this aside to dry fully. It's almost where I want it. I used a little bit of Tamiya liquid surface primer, as it's really good at filling in seams and small gaps. And once I let that dry and harden, we can sand it down, and hopefully that will get rid of any remaining bits of the seam of the filler pieces that we put on this fender. But you can see here where it all lines up pretty straight. After the final sanding, we should be good to have the front bumper fitting perfectly flush up against fender. Just one of the little things on this kit that you're going to have to look out for if you can find one and build it, that there are quite a few issues with the molding of this kit. So we're going to set that aside now, and we're going to look at our engine, as we're going to start taking all those parts out, cleaning them up, and there's going to be quite a bit of cleaning left to do, because if we take a good look at all of the engine parts here, you can see there's quite a bit of excess material there. Ah, bet you guys thought I was going to say flash again, didn't you? Oh, crap, I said it. Alright, here he comes again. Alright, so here we are back in the engine. We're going to start cutting these pieces out. As you can see, the engines are very simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 piece. No, 2, 4, 5, 6 piece. 6 piece assembly. And then the transmission is actually separate from the engine here. Looks like it's a manual transmission. It's really not much to speak of. We're going to have to see if we can do anything there to liven that up a little bit. But it's separate from the engine, so that's a good thing. So it'll make painting quite a bit easier. So let's start cutting some of these pieces out and seeing what we got. Alright guys, let me just show you the fit of this engine. This is not clean or smooth at all. This is going to require quite a bit of work. But on the plus side, this bad seam here is going to be covered by the intake manifold. This one here will be covered by the timing cover and water pump assembly. And this here will be covered by the oil pan. So basically, the only seam we have to worry about is what's going here on the bell housing on the back of the engine, which we're going to have to smooth that out, even it out, and blend those seams in. I know you'll probably never see it once it's in the car, but you know what? I want to try and build Mr. Mole the best engine that I can. So we're going to put a little Tamiya cement on that and start gluing everything together. Let's get a new one.
That I got for our next updates. Let me get the guys out of the way. We even have security today. He showed up again. Sorry about that leak. We're gonna put everybody in.
Now, even with the 2 mounting pins, which kind of sort of fit into their receptacles on the other side of the block, these seams are still just not good. Now, the intake manifold is in chrome, and we can't have that. Not this chrome, anyway. It's a little too toy-like. But let's just make sure that everything fits.
Back to Crap Mark's Hobbies and a mystery box
there we
from
go.
Lennis.
Now, I've got to get some pictures of Mr. Mole's engine. And then we're going to have to figure out exactly what everything looks like. And then we will continue with our assembly of everything we have that we can assemble before we have to paint. Alright guys, well, this kit is presenting a challenge at every phase of assembly. This is the transmission. And as you guys can see, the fit of the two halves of the transmission is marginal at best. I mean, look at that. It's not a smooth mounted or flat surface anywhere to be found on this thing. It's going to need quite a bit of work to get it to mate to the engine, because this is the fit of the transmission on the engine. Now, I'll admit, yeah, this won't be seen much of once it's in the car, but I really would like to see if I can make it fit properly, because that just doesn't look good. I managed to clean up quite a bit of the engine's bell housing, which was a horrible fit to begin with. That line that's left on there appears to be part of the ribbing on the bell housing case. I think that's supposed to be there, so I didn't remove it. But up on top, I did manage to clean up that horrible seam line that was there. So I didn't remove, like I said, I didn't remove that because it looks like it's supposed to be there. So I'm just going to leave it there, and we'll say that it was part of the casting. Now this is going to be tricky because I've got to get that to sit straight. So what I'm going to do is just try to sand down a bit of the mating surfaces and see if I can get it to give me a better or a more positive fit than what I'm seeing here. So I'm going to get to work on trying to straighten that out, and we'll be back and see if it works. Alright guys, and here we have the almost completed engine. As you can see, it took a lot of work, but I got the transmission cleaned up and I have it seated fully against the bell housing. Now, what I did was I took my files and I filed down the mating surfaces as flat as I could. There's no way to get them perfect, but I did get them as flat as I could. And then what I did was, using a liberal amount of Tamiya cement, the extra thin, I got it to soak the plastic quite a bit. And as soon as it started to melt the plastic, because that's what it does, is actually melts the plastic and allows them to fuse together, I pressed them together until it was seated against the bell housing on all four sides, which allowed everything now to sit flush against itself. So it looks a lot better than it would have had I just attached it the way it was. So I'm happy with the result right now. The seams are pretty much non-existent now. So it's turning out a lot better than I thought it would. And here we have our front covers on. Now this block has to get ready for paint. I may add a little extra detail to this oil pan because I don't like if you look at the oil filter, it's just molded to the side of the oil pan, but there's no oil filter housing that it's attached to, so it's just kind of floating there. So I may just put a small round piece of screw there to simulate the oil filter housing up against a block. I think it would look better that way. Then I have to drill my spark plug holes, attach the intake, and it's going to go off to be painted Pontiac blue. Alright guys, now that we got the engine mostly out of the way, I went back to check on my fender repair, and as you can see here, now we have a perfect fit between the front bumper and that fender. The gap is gone, everything just fits snugly against each other. Very happy with that. So that now this body can be sent to get primed. Alright guys, now that we've got the body sorted out, we've got the engine mostly sorted out, I'm going to show you the one last thing here before I end this video. You can see I put a small piece of sprue here, and that's to simulate the oil filter housing is attached to the side of the block. That way our oil filter doesn't look like it's just hanging out there in midair. I may do a little more reshaping, maybe just try and make it look, I don't know. I've got to get some pictures of the real thing and see exactly what it looks like, but I may reshape it a little bit just to try and give it a little more of an identity, other than just looking like a piece of plastic over the oil filter. You can see here it's attached to the pan. It's got the curve of the block on it, and fits perfectly here. I've already tested the exhaust manifolds over it, and I think that looks quite a bit better than just having that exhaust, having that oil filter just floating out there in space. Alright guys, that's going to be it. We're going to stop this video here, as I've decided that I'm going to present this video. Each episode is going to focus on one of the 3 cars, as opposed to jumbling it all up together. That way, if you guys want to follow just one particular build in this 3-build series, you can just hop from video to video based on the description to see what you want to see. So with that, I'm going to end it here. I just want to wish everybody out there, all my buddies out there in YouTube scale modeling land and Fiero land, have a really good holiday, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. If I don't see you guys again before the holidays are over, as I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of time to put another video out. We have a lot of family stuff going on. But if I don't, you guys enjoy it, and I will see you on the next one.